I was born a South African, a living, breathing testament to all of my parents' hopes and dreams for the future. Whenever I come back here, I am reconnected with the core of who I am. Over the years, this country has fed my soul like the rain nourishes a plant's roots. As time goes on, coming back here only gets harder. Things have happened here that I can't understand, that I can't explain. As a journalist, I've always been obsessed with understanding people and why they do the things they do. I am a storyteller, but these are stories I wish I didn't have to tell. My cousin was murdered for his car. My father's brother, my uncle, was murdered for what I don't know. I want to find a way for them to be remembered for their lives and not their deaths. I want to find a way through this pain so that this place can nurture us all once again. More than anything, I want to know if you can take a box of darkness that someone has given you and turn it into a gift. Growing up, I always knew my dad was a wild adventurer. From my first memories of him, I knew he was unstoppable. He didn't believe in impossibilities, and he tested himself in every way. I was the only kid I knew whose dad slept in an oxygen deprivation tent to prepare for mountain climbs. I was the only kid I knew whose dad was in the newspapers and on TV for cycling crazy distances in record-breaking time. More importantly than all of that, I was the only kid I knew whose father showed them life could be limitless. In his heart of hearts, I knew one of his dreams was to cycle across Africa, something he wished he could do with his older brother Nico. When Nico was murdered, that dream morphed into something much more profound. It would go beyond the simplicity of a physical adventure, and we would turn it into a way of coping with the loss that had splintered so many lives in so many ways. The goal is to cycle from the most southern point in South Africa, Cape Agulhas, to Cairo, Egypt, through Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Sudan. For the first time, I'll be joining him on one of his adventures. My father and I are alike in many ways, but differ profoundly in others. He is a self-described impatient person. I am, in his words, too patient. Both a bit stubborn with our own ideas of adventure, we have no idea what to expect.
Be right here with you. In this world of ticking clocks, I hope I'm getting through.
The moment the adventure began, there was one fact that I became acutely aware of immediately. We were in no way adequately prepared for what would lie ahead. We might have had all the supplies we could imagine needing, but the emotional and mental aspect of this trip was daunting from the very beginning.
I break it the whole day in small segments and try and just focus on the first 10 Ks. Later in the day when it's 30 degrees, it's just pretty hot and you have to really drink a lot and you must just stay on the bike. If you're not on the bike, you're not going anywhere. It was quite amazing at Riversdale. I was just waiting for my crew to arrive when this young Chinese guys stop on the side of the road and come to my side and start chatting to me and said that he left China in 2013.
My family is originally from South Africa, and my dad was raised on a sheep farm in the Karoo. Throughout most of his life, South Africa had been under the shadow of apartheid, and by the time I was 6 years old, the country's struggle for freedom was making it a dangerous place to raise a family. When my mother became pregnant with my brother Arno, they knew it was time to act. Something I will always give him credit for is his undeniable boldness. He is brave, and no matter what he sets his mind to, he gets it done. So, like any other plan of his, he made the craziest sounding thing happen and moved his entire family 10,000 miles across the world to Canada. We never would have left South Africa if my grandfather had still been alive. He was my father's best friend, and his death when he was just 17 years old turned him into an orphan. His mother had died when he was only 2. When his dad died, the sun was ripped from every sky, and my father's life was ash in an angry wind. The panic attack started not long after his dad's death. At first he thought he was dying. He couldn't control his breathing or steady the runes that spun around him. The doctors ran tests. He was healthy. His only illness, and one of the few things they didn't have a fix for, was grief. There was only one thing that could help his erratic heartbeat find its rhythm, and that was his best friend Jan. The two had met in boarding school and formed a fast friendship. When my dad returned to school a broken boy, Jan couldn't fix anything. He could only hope to distract my dad with endless games of chess. Jan didn't know it then, but he was saving my dad's life again and again and again. When I see them together today, I can feel my heart expand. These days, Jan has a crazy farmer's tan and hair so wild we call him Jan Einstein. But when they meet after an absence, I can see the strands of 50 years of friendship bind them together in a hug, and I know that there is a certain sense of peace my dad can only find in his presence. Totally surreal, eh?
It's actually a farm called Cairo, and that's where I grew up. The old house is basically here.
This was my father's home, has been since as long as he could remember. This is where both his parents lived and died, where he and Nico fought, where they found their friendship, and where he lost everything over and over again. This place is the beginning and the end of everything. This is where my dad lived when he was up until he was about 2 years old. And they were building the big house when his mom died. And I guess one night they found my dad when they were moving in. It was raining. They couldn't find my dad, and he was sitting on those front steps and said he didn't want to leave without his mom.
That's it.
Yes, with such big faces. Oh, sure.
Nico was a hard man, but a fair man. He was hard-working, straightforward, and a bit loud, but I have such fond memories of him. My dad and Nico had a troubled relationship as children, and only found their way back to one another when their own children were grown and gray hairs had found them. Nico was a stern young man, and my dad was much softer. Nico had to take over the farm when their father died, and having so much responsibility so young gave him little time for my dad's wild-eyed ideas of what life could look like. My father was a dreamer, and Nico didn't have time for those. But time softened them, and somehow they ended up meeting in the middle. By the time Nico died, the two of them had formed a tight bond. The last time they saw each other, they both cried when my dad had to leave. They made plans for the next time they would be together in a few months. The next thing he knew, Nico had killed himself. My father didn't believe it. He didn't believe it for a single second. I tried to convince him. I explained that grief can play tricks on us, but he refused to listen. He insisted Nico would never ever kill himself, and he hired a private investigator to look into things. I thought his sadness was driving him crazy, but he didn't budge. He looked over the photos of Nico's body and analyzed the bullet wounds. He became a man obsessed. When Cookie, Nico's wife, was charged with his murder, I was stunned. My father had been right, and now we are in the middle of a trial. Cookie and Nico had been married since before I was born. Cookie was one of the people my father trusted most in this world, and now she had become his enemy. He felt alone, truly alone. He had me and my brother, but everyone who he could look to for strength and advice, his father, his mother, his big brother, they were all gone. He was now the patriarch, and it felt foreign and frightening to stand alone.
The first thing in the morning, you're extremely stiff from the previous day. You start up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sometimes you had a cold shower the night before, so you didn't warm up very well. You start at 6 o'clock, everything aches. You just hope to get through the first hour first. Basically, concentrate not to have an accident or a mishap in that first hour until you warm up and your muscles get used to the pounding of them day after day after day.
With all of these experiences, meeting new people and seeing new places, it's easy for the outside world to forget why we're doing this. But we never forget. I always feel like Nico and Olwyn are with us, following us on this adventure and experiencing it themselves.
My name is Unjust Cowley. Olwyn Cowley was my only child. And on the 31st of August in 2012, he was murdered. He advertised his BMW on a Gumtree, on a website, to sell it. And these people contacted them. The guy's name was Jason. They viewed the vehicle. They just kidnapped him and took the vehicle and killed him. And they dropped his body in Bait and Pal Drive at Cairo Beach. Olwyn was a shy child. He didn't have a lot of confidence, but when he grew older, and especially after school, he was very in demand with a lot of friends and the girls. I remember when he was still in high school, my sister once said, she says, "Olwyn, I bet the girls are standing in a queue at your gate." And then your mom goes there and she says, "Have you been here this week? If you do, stand in the back of the queue. Next one." He was a very gentle child. I remember people saying to me, even today, if they look at him, he's got soft eyes. I spoke to him 5:15 that day, and then by 6 o'clock when he was still not home, I started phoning his cell phone. First it rang, and then as it carries on, it was just dead, or it was on voicemail. And eventually it was just dead. You couldn't get any answer. And then I phoned Bianca and I said, "Bianca, do you know where Olwyn is?" She says, "Yes, Auntie, they told me he's going to have a look at this vehicle." I said, "Well, it's like 6:30. And remember, it's winter, it gets dark. Well, it gets dark soon. So I started realizing here from 7 o'clock something's wrong. And Bianca said, she thinks we should come through. By the time Stephen and I got there, she had already contacted the police. She gave a little piece of paper that Olwyn wrote this person's name on. Jason actually used a different surname, Peterson, instead of his own, but he put the correct ID number down. And then when we got there, the police came back like half an hour later to say that they've traced this guy and they've known him because he hijacked vehicles before. And then I knew something was terribly wrong. That evening, it was almost around about 12 o'clock. I just told my brother, I said, Olwyn's still missing. Now everybody's looking for him. And my brother said, don't worry, they will find him. They will find him. I got a SMS from Bianca saying that, Auntie, they found the car. But they don't want to tell us anything because we're not family. I was just like, okay, this is it. This is it. And a few minutes later, my sister found my mom on the cell phone. My sister said she had put something out on Facebook or on a site. One of the paramedics saw it and then phoned her and said, listen, this person you're looking for, we found his body now. I didn't expect, when I got the paper, that his face would be on the front page. I thought this article would be on the second or the third page. I took the paper, I was standing in the shop, and I said, this is my child. This is my child. Losing a child is not something that a parent should ever do. We were not born to bury our children, it should be the other way around.
So I think we lost my dad a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. I think he might have made a wrong turn off if he didn't get a flat tire. So we're just gonna circle back to the last place that we saw him, and if not, we're gonna take the turn off and see if he went the wrong way for the second time today. Police came and stopped us to say that the old man is up ahead. Really nice police. Somebody didn't see you go past, so we drove back to town.
Only two ways of the road.
I know, we went back to town.
How can you go to town?
Because we didn't see you pass. No, we thought you had a flat or something. We didn't see you go by at all.
Yeah, but I want to go back to town.
We went back because we went to the last place we saw you in case you got a flat. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But also we went to town and we couldn't pass, as I said, but anyway.
No, because then you still have to come back in that same road.
I know, but we went around, up and down at the town.
But you would have had to go an extra like 60 kilometers in the middle to get back to the A2.
No, we got it just there, man.
But that goes all the way around.
60 kilometers.
Just stick on the A2 and then everybody knows where they're going.
Just get me a banana, please.
I'm just frustrated because I'm the only one that does fuck all around here. It's annoying. I'm the only one that fucking arranges where we're gonna stay, what we're gonna do. I have to handle all of the budgeting, the itinerary, the ice, support.
I need my glasses, I feel naked.
Do you want to wear mine? Here.
I'll wear yours, yeah. Oh!
It's a Valencia
Oh, this
filter.
is glorious.
It's a Valencia filter.
I like this.
Jones.
Making coffee.
Do you like coffee?
Is it do I like coffee?
Yeah, that's fine for mine.
Oh yeah! Coffee!
Done. Botswana is awesome. I really love it. Everybody's been really friendly. And we're getting a lot of people honking at us on the side of the road and waving, and a lot of people have stopped to see if we were okay. I love it here. I think it's pretty awesome so far. Knock on wood. It's been a really awesome experience so far. So thank you, Botswana. Well, my dad rocked it today. It was really hot and we couldn't find any ice, so basically he went 200 kilometers with lukewarm water and stuff like that. It was bad enough in the truck, so I really can't imagine how bad it was on the road. Today was a hard day. We all felt burnt out and tired. I don't know, what can I say? This is Africa. One thing we didn't realize when we started this trip was just how many times we'd be stopping throughout the day. The way it works is that we drive 10 kilometers ahead of my dad and then we wait for him. If it's a dangerous area or it's exceptionally hot or rough terrain, we'll make it 5 kilometers. If he wants to stop, he has the option. If not, he rides past us and we go another 5 or 10 kilometers and wait there. We're his only support, so it's important that we're always close by to keep him hydrated, to feed him, to help him with any emergency situations like flat tires, injuries, things like that.
What's the concern?
We dropped him off about an hour ago at 6:15 and at 7:15, and we've gone about 35k and we can't spot him, and it was raining really, really hard, so I don't know, we're just gonna turn around and try and get back on the road and see if we missed him or something. So yeah, it's a bit concerning. There's not a whole lot on this road. It's the A2. I think it's still the A2. Actually, maybe it shifts out of the A2 now. So I only had 30 pula in my pocket, but I just gave it to him because he seemed really sweet, so that was really kind.
Well, it was just storming and I was just looking for shelter, and this guy, luckily the dogs were barking, so he came and opened the gate and told me I can go in the caravan, but I was waiting for you people the first time you people went past. I ran out but you were gone already.
Oh, I wasn't panic mode. I was getting like materia on and I was worried. We're gonna go have breakfast. Dad needs to warm up. He's very, very cold. A bit shaken up, I think. What's this?
Shit. Time to turn around. Unsuccessful.
Check mark.
Somebody made a boo-boo. When the hell did this happen? Holy crap. That's bad.
Doesn't look good.
It's not a good day to ride. We're going to the Okavango Delta. I'm super excited. We're gonna go in one of those canoes. The Okavango Delta is something very different. There's so much life here, and it's so tranquil. It really feels like the birthplace of life itself. If I see a hippo now, this is a hippo, what do I do? Just stand still? Or do I run? Or do I play dead? I should run.
Because hippos is one of our aggressive animals. They're more dangerous here.
But if I see a lion, I don't run.
Lions
Because
here,
they'll
lions,
chase me,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
lions is.
Smells like nothing.
What are you smelling?
Elephant poo. Smells like nothing. I'm gonna be honest, I'm starting to get pretty nervous whether my dad can physically finish this trip. He's just not as young as he used to be, and he's not covering the distances each day that we originally planned. Like, don't get me wrong, he's pushing, he is nailing it, but it's just not as far as we originally planned. My first thought with this trip was that we should start in Egypt and finish in South Africa, and I still think that now. It's becoming clear that each country is going to become more difficult, and if we're already struggling, things aren't going to get easier.
Did you leave me a present?
I left you a beautiful present on your back.
In the morning when you put the gloves on, the gloves is normally wet from the previous day and it's more tight and it press on the different nervous systems of your hand. And basically your fingers go numb and you basically got no sensation in your hand after the first hour or two. It normally gets better when you warm up. But the feet is the same thing because of your feet swell up a little bit in the sun and it's more compression of your shoes and your socks, so your toes go numb and your feet go numb as well.
I was actually surprised that Jason got 25 years. I actually thought he was going to get 15 years. Although, Yakumin Swart, the advocate, she told me, she said, this judge has already made up his mind. But unfortunately, they have to go through the law procedures. Jason was out on bail because his father could afford it. None of the others could. And Jason was outside of the court, so I saw him. And I was just like, when I saw him for the first time, I had this feeling of, okay, so you're the guy that was the instigator of all of this. You were the guy that sort of initiated everything and wanted to buy the BMW from him. I didn't feel any hate towards him. I was just like, okay, so this is you, you know. And as things proceeded in the court, I obviously got to see the other guys as well. But I didn't have any hatred against them. It was just, to me, it was amazing and astonishing to see to what lengths they actually went in the court case to try and justify what they did. And how they tried to sort of shift the blame from the one guy to the other. Stuff like what Jason said, like, yeah, he didn't know Olwyn, but the forensics people and the science people actually proved that he went to Olwyn's Facebook to have a look to see who it was before they met. He was the one that phoned him on his cell phone all the time. So how do you argue with all of that? All of this is also drug related because they were using tuck and using drugs, and they wanted the vehicle to sell it for drug money. Jason comes from a very wealthy family, and yes, he didn't really need the car. He just wanted the car to sell it for drug money. And I think the fact that Soupy admitted from the start that he was guilty, he did shoot him, and that's what happened. He was honest from the start.
He realized that what he had done was completely against his religion and against his belief system and against what he would normally do. So, we pleaded guilty in any event. I had some discussions with his sisters as well afterwards, and they all said to me, I can't believe this. He's done many bad things, but he'd never done this. And his sister, and I think she said it in court as well, she said to him, "Dit kan een van ons kinders gewees het. It could have been one of our children. What were you thinking?" Because, they'd sort of lived with his robberies and all other things, but nobody thought he was going to go and do that. His family was so mortified, ashamed, sorry. They said, "How? We are mothers. We are parents. How could you do that to this woman?"
I felt 25 years is a good sentence, that they have to keep him there for 25 years. So I'm happy about the 25 years for Jason, and I'm happy for Soupy getting life. Although Soupy was also, in a certain sense, a victim because he was used to do Jason's dirty work. And most of the time, I'm okay emotionally with all of this. But then sometimes somebody could just say something, or I can just hear something, and it triggers.
The A33 is an experience that we just didn't expect. This road is something beautiful. It's something truly special. And I know it'll always be a part of this trip that I'll remember forever. That was incredible. We were just driving up and then we just saw these giraffes on the side of the road. I actually just saw one. And then I realized they were small giraffes. And then there was this huge big daddy. Anyway, they're really, really shy. So we tried to get as close as we could, but these are wild giraffes. It's just amazing to me that we get to do this. before we crossed on the ferry, one of the Botswana lady police officers came up to me and said, don't trust any of these men at all. And there were a bunch of people waiting to board the ferry. So on the other side, it is a complete clusterfuck, is the only way I could describe this border crossing. Because not only do you have to buy third-party liability insurance, you have to buy carbon emissions offset tax, a council levy, and you have to pay a road toll. And none of these buildings are labeled, and none of them are together. So all of these men come up to you and say that they'll handle it for you, and they're kind of trying to get you into different buildings and to follow them and all kinds of stuff. And it was just a lot happening, so I did the only thing I could think of. Eventually, I walked over to the actual person that allows you to go through the gates to the other side, and I asked her, what do I need? And she was really great. She wrote everything down, the prices. She kicked everybody out of the little office to talk to me. She was really great. And we ended up paying a lot less than we would have otherwise. We ended up paying what we should have paid. I can't tell you how relieved I was when those gates opened and we just got to go through. It was definitely a hallelujah moment. And then I realized that's probably the easiest border crossing we'll have from now on. So that was interesting. And then we went to Livingston and we went to Victoria Falls, which was epic. I feel like we've picked up momentum now. We're in the groove, so to speak. A month in now and the adventure's in full swing. I'm feeling really good about it. Oh, so a gentleman came and said his eye's sore. How are you? And he said, not well, my eye's sore, so take him some saline solution.
So it only drops you got?
I think so.
You've got no ointment. Yeah.
They're both in there, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to take choice. You take one now, one in the morning. One in the morning, one night.
He just said, how are you? And he said, oh, I'm okay, my eye's sore. And then my dad said, let me see it. His eye was really red. You could see there was something lodged in there, and it was, oh, eye infections are the worst. Sorry.
Bless you.
I think I'm getting the hay fever from Ryan. We arrived in Lusaka, Zambia today, and holy shit, traffic. It was nuts. People on bicycles, people selling everything you could possibly imagine. Vans cutting you off, people driving on the wrong side of the road. It took us at least an hour to get to the road we needed to get to, which doesn't sound like a lot if it's a major city, but we weren't going very far. So it took ages. I don't know. Lusaka's a bit of a different place, but we are staying in a really nice spot, so that makes up for it. Tomorrow, we get to meet with Esnat from CONTESA, which is going to be an awesome experience. And right away, we're going to go up to Kabwe and we're going to see one of the projects up there. When we rocked up to the CONTESA school after picking up Esnat, the greeting was so beautiful and unexpected. They were so welcoming, singing and putting on a dance performance. There seems to be such a nice unity around these children.
I started the CONTESA in Kabwe with my own funds, feeding about 300 children 3 times a week, giving them a meal. Hello, sorry. Good morning. This now has developed from that. We have got about 850 children here at Kabwe. That's our main center.
When we started planning for this trip, finding a smaller, reputable charity was next to impossible. I checked close to 100 of them, with most having little or no financial statements to view. Ongoing monitoring of previous children helped, or the ability to show me in person where their funding was going. It was a sad state. It left me very disheartened, and it showed me exactly why many of us are hesitant to give. I wanted to find someone who was busting their ass to do good, and someone who could prove it. Enter Esnat Avon. She might be little, but this woman packs a mighty punch straight to the soul.
Whatever money we get from everybody, donate, we want it on to be just for the children, 100% for the children. So that, for those people who support them, we pay as little as we can because we want the money to go into the children. We would like to pay them more money, but funding becomes a problem. Luckily, we have been really fortunate that we have found people who really also have got the vision that CONTESA has.
Those who cannot manage to go to the colleges due to funds, let them do a skill which can help them to sustain them and help the siblings. They are the ones who are coming here. And we have a number of them who are doing very, very well. They have done very well, and some they have started working, and the others they are doing their own, like doing the bricklayers, the carpenters. All this for them to learn. We need to buy all these materials. Yeah. You need to buy glue, you need to buy timber, you need to buy nails, you need to buy thinners. Sure, there's very much.
The desk is ideal to be shared by only 2, but mostly they have to sit 3 at a desk, which is not ideal at all.
Yeah. And then they will be dishing it out, so you will be able to see what. Natasha, you better go and try it.
Get it together, come on.
During our last financial year, which ends in June 2014, we delivered 624,000 meals.
When they go back home, there's no dinner, there's no supper until the following day. So they have turned this place as home. They just go there to sleep. Come back here to find the love of a father, the love of a mother. They come here to find food. They come here to find joy. Everything they find there.
What do you eat here mostly?
Fish, sausage, chicken, veg.
Which is your favorite one?
Vegetable.
You like vegetables the most?
Yes.
CONTESA had nothing to hide from me and desperately wanted our help. The message I received over and over again was always, look with your own eyes. Most of the children Esnat helps were orphaned when their parents died of AIDS. In Zambia, 16.5% of the population is made up of orphans. That's over 1 million children left without food, shelter, or love. Not only that, but these vulnerable children are easily abused and otherwise mistreated. Esnat doesn't start orphanages, she starts feeding programs. Esnat doesn't give kids stationery, she provides education and skills training programs to handle an actual job market. She doesn't give orphans pity. She gives them the one thing they can't find on the streets: respect. Esnat doesn't want these kids to survive. She demands they thrive.
Running with the birds would be safer. They came out of nowhere.
One of them was genuinely terrified.
CONTESA changed my life in a way that no one can explain and no one can tell. But I didn't like the way I was treated by my stepfather, and I hate that CONTESA, that they sponsor people and that there's a house where they set up and keep those people of nowhere to live. So I came to Mr. Patrick's office and I explained everything about the issue, and he said, no problem, then you can shift to CONTESA. I have hope that one day I shall be like someone who has the heart to help others, and I make sure that, because I've been through many things and many things that's happened unto me, but because of these people, CONTESA, I'm sure and I believe they'll see, and many people will see through the floods. My dreams, one day I want to become a doctor.
I know the difficulties we went through. I know what an orphan goes through. This is the reason that CONTESA was formed. Each time I see a child's life transformed, all I think about myself is just being so happy inside, and wish I could do the same over and over again with the children that we don't support. I wish other people could see how rewarding it is to be able to help helpless children, or helpless people, as a matter of fact. And to see this child from 5-year-old right up to 18, and has gone through all your programs in education and now into skills, that has really transformed my life. And even if I don't get enough funds, I always feel that I'm sure somebody somewhere will see and help us to continue. And it makes me very passionate each time I think that, we have helped over 12,000 children now with CONTESA.
So, when we have these long gaps waiting for your dad, do
Yeah.
we all go slightly insane?
We do. Do you want to see some photos? This is a moment I captured of Ryan Jones not too long ago.
It's such a beautiful morning on a Saturday. Sun is shining, beautiful weather, road is good, and you think about what privilege you have to be here and not in a dark office, 8 to 5, routine lifestyle, sit in front of a TV and go nowhere. So I think one must appreciate what you've got and just enjoy every moment.
Plus, you've got sandwiches made by a very special
lady.
Someone.
Oh.
And there's peanut butter and honey. You can see it's very appetizing.
I don't know what happened.
Oh, he just came downhill, and I thought I'll make way for him, so I turned to the inside and he turned to the inside too. And hit his front wheel, went over the handlebars.
Came to Malawi and I got rich. This is $200, actually not even. This is about $180. And you have to carry this around because they don't really take credit card in a lot of spots, especially a little bit out of the main cities. So we have to start carrying cash. This has to be one of the coolest places ever. We are in the Kazungula National Park in Malawi. It's the second largest national park here, and we happened across this really cool place. I can't remember what it's called, the Pita or something. It's a little lodge and it's right on the water, and there are tons of hippos in here. Many, many, many hippos, said the housekeeper, but he said we're safe here, so we are kind of stalking them. And we heard a bunch of grunting, and it's really exciting. So my dad has decided to go over there and try and spot them. He's very stealthy, as you can see in his fluorescent orange. They said they heard a shot 2 days ago and they think maybe he was shot.
We tried to call the vet, but yeah, that's about 4 hours drive.
Is it?
Yeah. So I'll stay here for 4 hours and keep an eye on him because he can't keep up with the group, so he's very vulnerable.
Oh my goodness.
And this is terrible.
You see this, Dad? Look, he's walking.
I know.
Shame.
I'm not a person who will look in the future. So I think my purpose for now is to be here and to protect the animals, especially the elephants. Because I say animals because we don't have a lot left. This park was called Kruger Park in the early days, and nobody will come here anymore. The rhinos are already extinct. But we do our best, and some people say, Remy, you're bringing water to the sea. I'm very positive. I just still want to fight for it. Very proud that this lodge is now up and running, and it needs to go to the next level. So since last year, November, Yobe Thompson is managing the lodge now. So now I can fully concentrate on my elephants. I named a lot already, and it's so good to see when you're back from, even if it's just one daily long, when you come back and you see Bobo or Fupa or Mr. C, then I'm like, oh yes, they're still there. And I say, oh yes, they're still there because of poaching.
I think out of 1,500, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I counted 48 last year. So it's bad, it's really bad. Anti-poaching unit here is very important. I need them, they need me. They need information from me to know where the elephants are in which months. I need information from them, so one cannot survive with the other.
Well, I've done the army before. I didn't really see any good reason why we was standing there and there fighting, and for me this is a good reason to fight. If you protect elephant, you also protect the whole park. Deforestation, encroachment, water poisoning, and all of those problems we got.
How many people in your unit here?
In total?
Yeah.
Not enough. Park is really huge. It's 2,300 something square kilometer, and we're definitely not enough to counter poacher. So with the little equipment we have, we try to just protect the park, send a message. We do also sometimes some extension, go in a village, patrol in the village and explain, try to explain that it's not good to poach. It's a long process. It is really hard, and the amount of distance that we have to cover, it's huge to protect the park. So we work with communities a lot, and they give us information that we can go and arrest poacher. We also work with the police and magistrate, try to change a bit the mentality and give more or bigger sentences to the guys we catch. The problem is the government doesn't have much money, so we help as we can. Yeah. And now we had some good improvement, but everything is slow.
I just arrived 10 days, trying to stay here for a year. There's a lot of reasons. Probably the biggest one is that I've done some things that I'm not proud of, and I feel like I need to fight a different fight, but for a good cause, not for politics, not for money, just to help people out. So that's why I'm here.
I can't help but look at Matt and see a man drained. Drained of energy, time, and resources, but not drained of his last hope. What is truly remarkable is that he continues. He's still fighting. He's still leading the charge.
One of the challenges with wildlife medicine, especially when your goal is for them to stay in the wild, is when to intervene. And so even before I went to go look at this elephant, I had in my mind, what are some of the things that I'm looking for that would mean that I can do something, that I can help? The problem with a wound or an injury like this is that if there's a big nasty wound, if there's a snare, there's something we can do something about.
She is eating, but I'm not sure about drinking. I don't know if she went to the lake before she came out here. So we're just going to try to find and look for her. And then she can see herself. Hopefully she can see the wound a little bit closer by. She has her binoculars with her. And if she sees that it is possible to remove the bullet, because what we then have is like the bullet itself, and we can match it with the poacher. Okay. And then he can go on trial. It would be great if we have the bullet, but if it will harm the elephant more, then I don't want her to do it. But it would be a win-win situation if it's possible to operate her, get the bullet out, treat her, and then the coming days I'm just going to monitor her, and then we have the bullet.
When we went out and saw her, it was obvious she is very, very lame on that leg. She's having a hard time picking up the foot, And also she's just not being able to bear much weight on it. And even though she can move around, she's eating, she went out with her family, it's obvious that her mobility is very limited and that she just is in a lot of discomfort. We're looking at her wholly. You could see a place in the ear where it looked like the bullet went through. And so I was following that to the other side of the ear and then to the point of the shoulder. And it did look like there was a bullet entry. It's something that you might be able to stick your finger into.
It's an organized crime. A lot of people think it's the poor Malawians who needs money and feed the family. It's not true. These guys, they don't care about animals, they only care about money. They have big houses and cars and they just want to have more and more money. So it has nothing to do with feeding the families. Not anymore. Maybe it was in the early days. Then there was the real hunting. These poachers need to be punished. And in Zambia, in Kenya and Tanzania, the poachers can't choose to pay a fine or go to jail. Here in Malawi, they can still choose. And that's for us also hard, because then of course they choose to pay money. They will get their money somewhere. And then they are back on the street, or in this case, in our bush the next day.
Animals that are big like that don't do well on 3 legs. And so it will be causing a lot of extra stress on the rest of her body, especially her front left. And you can already tell that in the way that it's a bit wobbly at times. So when there's this overall stress and imbalance in the animal, you think, okay, so if I'm going to anesthetize this animal, I need to have a really good reason, because that's going to add yet another stress on top of it. And that could be what puts them over the edge. So unless there's just a really, really good reason you think this is going to make the difference in this animal's outcome, then and you might consider against an anesthesia. And that's what I did today. And I chatted with, I had asked for, when I heard about this story last night, I emailed friends that I knew down in South Africa who are wildlife vets and said, what is your recommendation? They said, gunshots, you usually leave them unless there's something obvious to do. And I called another friend today and I said, hey, this is a situation. She's like, yep, I would give it at least a week, make sure she is hanging in there and eating and moving at least somewhat and staying stable. But I agree, there's the benefits of an anesthesia and what you might do is not going to outweigh the risk. And when they're already on the line, you just want to try to support them as best you can. I suspect that the problem, instead of an infection or something like that, for her is going to be just the overall stress of not being able to move and being under a lot of pain. That doesn't mean that we need to rush out and euthanize this animal. I think giving her some time is fine, as long as she's eating, moving, and maintaining body condition and stuff. I think you can give her some time to hopefully heal. If it becomes obvious that she can't do that, then you might consider a different course of action.
I'm just looking forward to meet the guy who shot him. Problem is to get volunteers come here. It's on their own cost, and because we don't have money, I also ask them to pay a bit of money for their stay if they stay for a short time. So that's a lot of money for them. So they must be really motivated. If I can at least be able to pay for their food, then we can have much more people, and that will help.
I mean, I know a lot of guys who complete mess after they came back from Afghanistan, just drinking, doing drugs, and barely hanging on to any jobs. And they need to think about making peace with themselves and trying to fight a different fight, but for a good cause, like I said, where politics not involved.
We need people to be out there looking at this and going, this is not just an elephant that has gotten chopped, this is a case. You know what? And to look at it like a case and say, all right, you know, he was saying it would be really, really useful to have the bullet for ballistics and to be able to identify the shooter. That's a great way to look at something like this, because if you're just saying, that's too bad, I hope this doesn't happen again, then it kind of just lets everything slide a bit. So his work, especially looking and saying, our goal is to find this and this person, and here's how we can take steps to do that, I think that's great.
They're getting freaking slaughtered out there. The poachers, they don't care, they just cut their noses off and pull the ivory out right in front of their kids. And that's horrible. I mean, most of the guys I served with, they have really, kind heart. They should just do some reading, and if there's the stuff that you see and read about what poachers do to the elephants, I mean, if something inside of you doesn't change, if something doesn't click, then what kind of human being you are, I mean, we saw a lot of suffering out there back in Afghanistan. I feel it's kind of the same, but this time it's the animals who suffer. I just want to help, and I hope the guys back home, they will, like I said, do some reading about it, and something will change, and they'll come out here.
I respect these guys so much. They risk their lives to go into the bush, try to find poachers who are heavily armed. They can kill elephants, so it's easy to kill a person, but they go there, and I have a lot of respect for them. But you have to have a specific background to help Matt, because you have to walk in the bush. It's very dangerous, and you have to know how to handle a gun. Of course, they don't have to use it that many times, but Matt must also feel secure with his team. It's the same as in a war. It's also a war here.
We try to hold the line until people realize how important it is.
It's something I can be proud of for the rest of my life.
It's a big challenge. It's not finished.
Kazungula is an example of the many parks and conservationists within them fighting a losing battle. Losing all of the elephants is a very real possibility if more people like Remke and Matt don't step forward to help. Poaching will mean a world without many of the things that make Earth the most beautiful planet in the solar system. This trip has been far more difficult than any of us could have predicted. We can feel ourselves becoming more and more emotionally and mentally fatigued as the days wear on. The things we are seeing are not what we had envisioned. There is more sadness and destruction than there is hope. We are deep in the heart of Africa, and home feels a very, very long way away. I find myself obsessed with the stories. I play them in my mind at the end of every day. I have no urge to look at makeup or worry about what I'm wearing. All the materialism from my old life disgusts me. We have been infected with a huge dose of reality, and there is no antidote. at Lake Malawi right now, which is incredible. It actually looks like the ocean. It's really strange, and it reminds me a bit of Phuket, but it's really quite beautiful. So it's time to be a little bit more discreet as we move up through more northern Africa. Right now we're in Malawi, moving in through Tanzania, and there's a lot of touchy subjects that we're covering for the documentary, and we don't exactly want people to know what we're all about. So we're taking off the stickers, the website, that kind of stuff, just to be a little bit more careful.
You have a sort of a sense that something is behind you. You can't look back, because as soon as you look back, that pulls you over to the inside of the road. And you brace yourself, because if it's a big truck, you have to concentrate if there's any vehicles from the front, because a lot of times two vehicles can't pass one another with me in the road as well. A lot of times I have to go in the gravel and worried about punctures and falling. So it's very difficult and stressful, especially uphill as well. You go slow, and you know, there's really a lot of trucks on the road as well.
Yo! We are in Manyoni, day 53. Sorry about the noise. It's a little guest house. It costs less than $10 a night. For that price, you cannot be too picky about your bed, or, you know, going to sleep and having no noise. So that's what's going on in the background. It was a different day. We're on our way to Singida, and today my dad just wasn't feeling very well around the 100K mark. And so he said that he was just dizzy and he wanted to sit down, and he ended up throwing up. And we laid him down for a while, put out the sleeping bag, and he said he was feeling much better after about, I don't know, it was about 20 minutes, something like that. I wanted him to stop. It was 100K back to Dodoma, and we didn't know if there would be any accommodation in Manyoni, so he didn't want to stop though. He wanted to keep going. So that's what we did. It was a bit worrisome. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I just kept thinking, if he throws up while he's on the bike, he could end up falling over and being hit by a car, or if he's dizzy and he passes out or something like that. But he just doesn't listen. He needs to rest, and he needs to eat better. I mean, he's eating French fries and Coke, and it's just not very, very healthy. So I do worry about that. I am concerned about my dad, but at the same time, he's gone through a lot and he's been through a lot. So while I'm concerned, I never count him out. I never assume what's going to happen or what he'll be able to accomplish, because he's blown my mind several times. So I'm very careful to walk that line where I'm supportive but not smothering. And I definitely think those are two different things. So while it's difficult, the whole trip is difficult. I mean, yes, there are moments where there are incredible highs, but there are also incredible lows where everything just feels like overwhelming. So at this point, just take it a day at a time. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I only know what happened today. And every day here seems to be a bit of a surprise. Something new happens. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Maybe we'll end at the end of Kilimanjaro. Maybe we'll end in Nairobi. Maybe we'll make it all the way to Jerusalem. No idea at this point. In Tanzania, we documented the most heartbreaking and ultimately disgusting of stories, something that would make us question the very nature of humanity.
People with albinism in Tanzania, we are now facing killings. We are being hunted. People need our body parts. They say when they get our body parts, they'll be rich. They'll get wealth through our body parts, our hairs. They say that when they get our bones, when they go to the area where there is gold, they get a lot of gold. When they go to the fishing area, they get a lot of fish. That's their belief. I don't know if it's true. Myself, I don't believe. But I think they believe because they continue with the killings. They continue with the killings. Before starting school, I was young, at home playing with other children. They teased me. Some other pinched me. I cried, begged to my mother. Discrimination is still there for people with albinism. In December 27th, if I'm not wrong, the girl called Pendo. Pendo was attacked and they took Pendo. I don't know where they've taken her. Till today, we don't know where Pendo is, 4 years old. They've kidnapped from her mother, but I'm sure they have already killed her. They've taken what they need in the body and maybe they've thrown other, or they've buried because Pendo has not yet been found till today. In February, another boy, Johanna Bahati, 1 and 6 months. They attacked Johanna from her mother. After the second day, the body was found, but without legs, without hands. They've already chopped them off. Let me take off my tears. I'm thinking of those 2 girls. My tears are coming out.
It was difficult to find someone willing to take us to the albinos because many of them live in secret. Their lives are a constant battle to evade the human hunters. Eventually, I was put in contact with Miss Happiness, an albino herself, so that she could take us to the villages to meet the albino children and their families in their homes. We had to be careful not to be followed, and we were instructed not to tell anyone about the project. What we found changed us forever in every way possible.
All this killing of albinos, there is the impact of witch doctors.
Themselves, they are saying it is the impact killing albinos. Some of them, they believe themselves that if they kill albino and take the part of the albino's body, for example hand, then they are taking them to the witch doctors. Then they believe when they take there, they are going to become witches. As well as in this year, they are going to steal for the general election.
Yeah.
They believe that if they get albinos, some of them they are going to get good posts in the government as presidents, prime ministers.
So the government, there are government officials that are believing that.
We don't know who are they.
Yeah, you don't know who.
Yeah, we don't know who are they, but we wonder near the election.
Why?
Yeah, why? Why every time near the election?
But there's an election this year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah.
When you walk in the streets, do people say things to you? Do they ever call you names or?
Sometimes, yes, but not that much.
Does it make you scared or just you ignore it?
Because I appreciate myself, I used not to care.
That's a good answer. That's a very good answer.
Wherever I go, anywhere, I must have someone with me. I fear for my life. That's how it is for all people with albinism. They fear for their life. And that's why there are schools in Shinyanga region, there is Tanga region, Mwanza region. There are schools where people with the children with albinism are being sent by their parents there. I call it dumping place. They dump them because they never come back. The children can't stay there without love of their parents. They must be taken by their parents. It's terrible. Wherever you go there yourself, you'll cry. It's terrible. Terrible. It's So for them to stay there, it's terrible. Well, they are saying that people with albinism never die, they disappear, which was not true. They were being killed after birth. But they were killed because in those lake regions, wherever they feel that having a child with albinism, it's a curse. So therefore they kill them. The first thing which is needed is awareness, education. All those regions are lake regions and the regions nearby. Education must go there deep down to know who are people with albinism. Why are they white? We are white because we don't have melanin, but we are human beings. It's a genetic condition. They are needed to be informed. They don't know. If they know, they'll be friends with us. We'll be familiar with them. They won't kill us. They think we are ghosts. That's what they say. You people are ghosts. You are not human beings. It's for those people with albinism who are living very far in the villages. They must be removed to the area where there is a people around because they are staying very far. The attackers are coming. They do whatever they do and they run away. No one knows till late. But if people stay in the area of rural areas where there are people around, those attackers can't come. They can't do the killings around there easily. People think that when we are born, we have these scars, or we are pinching our eyes, or the teeth are coming out. It's not there. They don't need to be like that because of sun. Sun is the problem. That's why they look like that, their faces. That's not how they were born. When you see an albino baby, very beautiful baby, albinos are beautiful like any other people.
Feel bad even at sleeping time. Because once we hear someone knock the door, we feel, maybe they want to take Sophia. So the families who having the albinos, this time it is very bad time for them. We are living like, you know what, animals, small animals in the forest. We were just waiting. Maybe the lion will, once the lion will pass, the end of my life. We're living like that.
I have hope and I'll fight for them. I hope one day the killings will stop. We are human beings like any other people. We are human beings.
After hearing the stories of the albinos and all that they had endured, I felt a part of my belief in the human spirit disintegrate. I remember the moment when it fell away, the moment I knew the battle was far greater than I had imagined, and I feel like I'll never regain that belief. How could humans hunt humans? The albinos, Olwyn, Nico, gunned down for things that didn't matter, greed, anger, for things you couldn't count on, for things you couldn't hold on to. Lives snuffed out for absolutely nothing. Now that I truly know what people are capable of, it is hard to pretend the reality is something different, but this awakening, this new set of eyes, must be used for a greater purpose. We cannot get lost in our own disillusion. There is no time for that. There is a famous quote from Mahatma Gandhi: "You must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is an ocean. If a few drops of the ocean are dirty, the ocean does not become dirty." But the problem is that it's not just a few drops that are dirty. The damage that is being caused is great. It's affecting everything around it. These issues aren't small. They're not easily fixed, and they are continually growing because there is not enough being done. Too often, people are looking away, expecting it all to magically be fixed, but it won't. We can't leave these problems anymore. Things must change, or it will be too late. But how? That is always the biggest question. My brother is an absolute sweetie pie. He is just a force that I can't explain because he's got so much goodness in him and he's so positive and he's so sweet, and he's just a very vivacious, vibrant person. So I was really looking forward to him coming on the trip because that's what we needed. We needed an injection of awesome. There's many things I've learned from my father, but none as significant as to live the life that you want with no exceptions, no almosts, and with no regrets. He is a man who has spent his life fighting against the odds. He lost both of his parents at a young age. He had a career in the military before committing himself to studying medicine. Failing several times, he resorted to studying by himself and continually retook his exams until he passed. He moved himself and his family to the opposite side of the world to avoid apartheid in South Africa and in search of a better life. Always an avid participant in sport, he found his passion in adventures, and there his heart has forever stayed. He cycled across the Americas from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, Argentina, cycled twice in the Furnace 508, 508 miles through California's Death Valley in 48 hours. He's run over 40 marathons with a best time of 2 hours and 48 minutes, 2 10 Ocean marathons, 9 Comrades marathons, 2 Milo Corkis, and 2 Ironman triathlons. My father has completed the 7 highest summits in the world: Kilimanjaro in Africa, Aconcagua in South America, Mount Elbrus in Europe, Mount Vincent in Antarctica, Karsten's Pyramid in Oceania, Mount McKinley in North America, and Mount Everest in Asia. At one point, he was the oldest Canadian in the world to summit Everest. His life is a roadmap of struggles, but alongside them are even greater successes. I couldn't imagine all the things his eyes have seen, all the aches his body has felt, and all the pain he still holds in his heart. But what I know is that he is still going. He is living his life his way, no matter what anyone says, thinks, or does. Everyone has an adventure in their life, a goal, a crazy idea, but there's only a few willing to chase them. What I know for sure is that my dad is one of them.
Don't worry.
This is turning into a bit of a nightmare. For Ethiopia, we can't apply at the border, that you have to apply from our home country or from the airport. They're not going to let, with crime and all that kind of stuff, some Kenyan guy take across a vehicle that was registered in South Africa and his name is absolutely nowhere on any of the paperwork. We should have gone the other way around. But where would we apply for our Sudanese visas then? Here. Well, Egypt is changing their rules on May 1st, so you can no longer get a visa on arrival. Current policy is that tourist visas can be obtained on arrival at Bole International Airport in Addis Ababa, but this is likely to change in the near future without any warning.
If we applied for Sudan back home, it would have run out by now. It would have run out over a month ago.
Seems like it was much easier before, but now it's just not possible. There's no point in getting a Sudanese visa if we can't get into Ethiopia. Those entering by land will face extreme difficulty, all capital letters. Like everything is changing. Egypt was supposed to be pretty easy.
Egypt to Sudan is easier than Sudan to Egypt.
Yeah.
And things like why? Why is it? I don't understand how that's different.
We can't get a transit visa for Sudan without the country following it to be able to show that we are actually in transit. So we need to have our Ethiopian visa or our Egyptian visa as well. How do we get our Egyptian visa? We get our Egyptian visa from Khartoum in Sudan. We can't get into Sudan without our letter of recommendation, and we can't get our letter of recommendation without being in Sudan, and we can't get our transit visa without being in Sudan.
Otherwise you have to drive back.
I think we should go home. Us having this idea that in Cairo, magically, everything's going to fall into place, and that we're just going to be able to let go of everything that's happened, and somehow, in some way, the culmination of the journey will be the culmination of the emotion and the heartache and the loss. Maybe that's not realistic. Maybe what is realistic is taking the memories that we have and moving forward from here and going back the way that we came. Not flying back, but retracing our steps and retracing the journey so that we can go back over what we've learned and discovered and experienced, and hopefully coming full circle in this entire journey.
To be honest, emotionally it was very tough for me not to complete it this time and basically put it off until a later date. So it was very difficult for me to refocus and reprogram my mind that it's not the end of the world. It's always much more difficult to accept it because I overcome a lot of physical problems on the trip. You know, firstly it was my shoulder before I even started, and it took about 10 days to resolve, and then the 3 falls I had off the bike that affect my left elbow dramatically. That's improving but not 100%. So physically I was just recovered now and looking forward to the last part of the trip, because I thought, I won't say the easiest, but physically and mentally I was prepared for the last trip, and it was a devastating blow not to complete it this time. I don't think my life would be worth living without adventure, so I will do it as long as physically and mentally I can do it. I would just train and prepare mentally, physically and logistically much better in the future. Every small victory is a success, and you have to be happy for the success you achieve at any point in time in your life, and not to be greedy and unthankful that you couldn't complete what you started at that particular time. But also, you never fail until your last try.
I think for my dad, there's this really cathartic feeling to seeing Jan. It's a reprieve for him. He feels like he can be himself. It kind of takes him back to feeling comforted and relaxed. So that night was a very fitting time for him to be seeing Jan. And I sat across from them while they were talking at the fireplace and just watching them laugh outside and the fire going and just talking bullshit, you know, whatever they talk about, making jokes and talking about school and what's happened to people and, you know, who married who and who divorced who and why, and, you know, kind of silly things that you would kind of expect women to talk about. Just to hear them laughing about that stuff was really cool. And it just relaxed him in a big way. And I think it reminded him that no matter what happens now, where you come from and who you are at the root of yourself, like not who the world thinks you should be or not their impression of what you are, but who you really are. That's what matters. And being surrounded by people that remind you of that is a really powerful thing.
I think a lot of people standing on the outside saying the court case has ended now, they've been sentenced and now it's all over. It's all over for who? For them, but not for us. It's over for them that's been standing there in court and had to testify. It's over for them. But it will never be over for me or my family because they've taken away my child. People don't realize that's never been here, that this is not something that you cope with and it's over. It's something that you learn to live with. It's like losing an arm or leg. You're not dead, you're just trying to live without it. So a piece of me died and I'm just living without it now. It did bring a sense of closure for me, the fact that the court case came to an end and that they were sentenced and that they got good sentences. But it will never replace or will never wipe away my feelings for Olwyn or the fact that I still miss him every time. He will always be a part of my thoughts and it will never be over. I just learned to cope with it.
The car was a nervous ball of energy as we drove up to the prison. Supi had given us permission to film the interview and his meeting with Sarita, but at the last moment, the prison decided to rescind their permission. We were told to leave all of our equipment in the car, and it was a devastating blow for the project. We knew, however, that ultimately this was about Sarita wanting to give Supi her forgiveness in person. Watching her cry, hearing her words in that room, the sound of her saying, "I forgive you," it was quiet but firm, deafening in the weight of its meaning, 3 words that would change everything, and yet change nothing at all. And then I was escorted into a private room where Supi and I could speak one-on-one. His social worker was there as his advocate. The prison manager was there as an overseer, and Ryan was there as my emotional support. And so I sat face to face with a career criminal and murderer. I just had to get out of there. I just had to get out. Couldn't stay a second longer. He was very, very detailed. And it was just felt surreal, like it wasn't real. I told him that I forgive him too, but obviously it's your forgiveness that matters. That was really hard. That was emotionally draining. Sad. It's like something beyond sad.
Yeah.
Like, emptying. It's just completely draining.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would feel like that. I thought it would feel more cathartic. Like I thought it would feel better.
Yeah, but you don't feel better, do you?
No, I don't feel better.
No, neither do I. But I think it will, later on, it will feel better. Not now.
I asked him if he could just do us one favor and just do something good with his life now. Make something happen for other people or whatever, so that it's just not in vain. You know, I was hoping that he had a conversation with Olwyn or said something to him, but he didn't. It's time to go home. This is Olwyn's very first teddy bear. When we first decided to undertake this adventure, a good friend of mine told me to be prepared for the story to tell itself. That no matter what I wanted to happen, the real story might be drastically different to what I hoped it would be. That turned out to be the truth. I wanted to see if you could turn a box full of darkness into a gift. And the truth is, you can, but that won't ease the pain or grief you feel in the process. My father, throughout his life, set an example of how to overcome obstacles and persevere in even the most difficult of times. Without him, none of this would have been possible to begin with, and it is only with his help that we were able to meet so many incredible people. I have learned so much from Esnat, who is using her life to take care of thousands of children, battling through retirement rather than leading a life of relaxation. From Remka, who is using all of her strength and energy to protect elephants in a small park on the other side of the world with few resources. And from the Honorable Al-Shaima Kwagir, who is fighting for the end of the murderous rampage she herself has to be protected from. From all these empowering women, I have discovered that you can turn your greatest struggles into your greatest triumphs. But no one on this journey has taught me more than my Auntie Sarita, who has shown me that forgiveness is the only way to free yourself from a tangled web of rage and hatred. And no, we weren't able to complete our trip. We didn't reach our destination in the end, but we did find what we were looking for. We were able to answer the questions we could and let go of the ones that simply had no answers to be found. We found strength in our weakness. Yes, we have lost so many that we have loved, in so many a cruel way, but in order for us to survive, we have to let them go. Our grief isn't what keeps them close. It is a lifetime of love and memories that binds them to us forever. Nico is still at Curryhook, looking down those dry, dusty roads with the heat of the sun on his shoulders, and Olwyn is still driving the streets of Cape Town, laughing with his music playing loudly. They live in our memories. Sarita once told me that, knowing all that she knows now, she would still have Olwyn and done everything the same. Loving him was worth the pain. Being his mother was worth bearing such an inconceivable loss. Knowing him was worth the suffering. Watching her in that room with Supi, I discovered more about the human condition in 20 minutes than I had in my entire lifetime here on Earth.
If you don't forgive people, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person would die.
Kilimanjaro, 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 mlima mrefu sana. Na mawezi, mlima mrefu sana. Ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka, ewe nyoka, mbona walizunguka, walizunguka, wataka kunila nyama, kunila nyama. Unila nyama mbona wanizunguka. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni wakaribishwa Kilimanjaro, hakuna matata. Tembea pole pole, hakuna matata. Manara wakalala, hakuna matata. Gorombo wakafika, hakuna matata. Uhuru wakafika, hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni wakaribishwa Kilimanjaro, hakuna matata. Thank you everybody.